Wow, it's deja vu all over again. We've got a wing in the basement again. So this is the right wing off the airplane. We did the left wing last spring. I'm going to do the right wing this time. Now this wing has a few more pecker holes in it from the birds and stuff than the other wing did, but it actually is not too bad a shape as far as the fabric covering is concerned. The left wing had a whole bunch of this rib lacing that was broke loose, and the fabric was starting to flop a little bit. We had to do emergency lacing on, I think, 3 of the ribs. So I knew I had to do it first, so we got it off last spring, got it all redone and back on, and it's pretty nice now. Like I said, this wing doesn't need it as bad, but after opening up that other wing and seeing the condition of the inside of the wing, I caught some things before they got bad, some rust and some corrosion. It didn't really have any in it, but if I'd let it go any longer, it could have been serious damage inside the wing. So that makes me want to get into this wing too. So anyway, we got it off the airplane and up here in the basement, and I just finished winterizing the airplane. So the airplane is pretty much done. It's still freezing in there. It's like 16, 18 degrees, something like that. So it's only 55 degrees in here, but it was freezing in the hangar. So with everything it had already been wet in there before, there were water drops and stuff from the plane being out in the rain and frost on everything. So I've got fire going in there, but I only get it up to about 32 degrees or so. It's starting to dry out in there, and once it dries out, then I'm going to put a cover over the airplane so it doesn't get all dusty and dirty sitting in there. Well, we were able to make room here in the basement to bring the wing in again. I had to move some of the stuff out of here that we had in here before because we put the shower in there now, and that takes up quite a bit of room. But it does leave me plenty of room to work on the wing here. I was worrying about that. And we got the lathe spun around. Having those casters on the lathe is just a wonderful thing. I can just move it around by myself with no problem at all. I've got it moved around, and it's usable where it's at in case I need it for some reason, but it's out of the way. And then of course I've got all my screws and nuts and bolts and tools and things like that, taking them back down to the shop in the hangar, so I've got to start shuttling that stuff back up here. But I don't need it yet. First thing I got to do is take off this fairing that goes here over the flap, and then this extension on this inboard wing rib. I got to take those two things off. Once I get those off, then I can strip the fabric off of there. And we'll take the fuel tank out, start cleaning this fuel tank bay up in here, because this is where I wound up finding trouble with potential trouble, not trouble, but potential trouble on that other wing. So we'll get in there and start looking at that stuff. Like I said, get the fabric all stripped out of here, inspect all of the ribs and all the attach fittings that might want to be taken off these flap hangers and aileron, and cleaning those up, sandblasting them, check them out, make sure. I had to replace one flap hinge on the other wing, so I want to make sure all that stuff is good, get parts ordered if necessary. So anyway, it's time to start working on the wing. I got that rib fairing off without any trouble. There's 4 screws in it, 2 on the top and the bottom. The 2 on the top had been filled up with silicone, but I was still able to get them out. So I got all of the screws except for 2 out of this flap fairing, and those 2, the Phillips head driver, are just spinning in them, so I have to dig out the Dremel tool and what I do on those is I'll cut a slot in them and then get them out with a standard screwdriver. But I've got these Tinnerman nuts here, these spring-loaded nuts here on the rib for the fuel tank. I'll take those off now too. I took a Dremel tool with a cutoff wheel on it and put a slot in each one of those two screws that wouldn't come out, and I was able to get them out with a flat-headed screwdriver, a standard screwdriver. Then I almost forgot that there was a catch on the bottom side of the wing for the door half, upper door half. I got it off, and then down on the other end there was the navigation light. Well, that aluminum nut-zert squeezed into the top of the navigation light with a machine screw up from the bottom, Phillips head machine screw, and the Phillips head just spun in it. So I tried to turn it from the top with a pair of vice grips, figuring I could turn it because the screw stuck out a good inch out of the nut, out of that nav light. I thought maybe if I got it turning from the top, then I could cut off the threads that I boogered up with vice grips and unscrew it from the bottom. But it just spun the nut-zert in there. It's just thin sheet metal on that, and it just spun the nut-zert on it. Well, I cut the protruding end of the screw out of the nut-zert, and then I took a drill and drilled it out and got that out of there. So I've got everything off there now that needs to come off. So now I can take that fabric off of there, start pulling the fabric off. There we go. Up until now, everything that I've done could be undone, but start this like this is no going back now. Oh, metal there on that. Outboard rib is just bright shiny. Yeah, I'd say this probably had a wingtip. Malfunction on this one. The wingtip is all new here. Couple of Vortex generators popped off. I'm trying to leave this pretty much as clean as I can, so I can use this for a pattern. Put the Vortex generators back on when I put them on. Once I redo the wing cover. I got most of the fabric off there, but that trailing edge, they did the same thing on this one as they did on the other one, is they sewed the fabric so that it went the full length, and there's a seam there in the middle, and then they butted it up back here on the trailing edge and took some sheet metal strips, aluminum strips, put down over the fabric seam and screwed it on, and then put tape over the top of that. So it's kind of a pain in the ass to get it apart. I'm going to take this fuel tank out. Right now I got a little bit of fuel, residual fuel left in the tank. With this opened up, there's a crossbar that goes between this rear spar and the front spar up there that's bolted in, that goes through a cavity, a hole in this wing, in this fuel tank. And what I've always done before was just pick the fuel tank up, pick that bar up and kind of spin it up and pull the fuel tank off of it. But since I got access to this bar when it attaches right in there, I can go ahead and take that thing out of there a little easier, maybe. Let's see how it goes. There. That's what I was trying to do, is get that fuel tank out of there without having to go dig out sockets to get in there and take those hoses off of there. Let me stick this outside for now. This still has, well, there's no fuel left in that. Alright, the fabric is all loose except back there on that trailing edge on that false spar. If it's like the other one, it's got tape over it, and then it's got those aluminum strips in there screwed down to that false spar. And so I can't get that loose from there without taking that first layer of tape off of there and then taking those screws and stuff out, taking those strips off there. Oh, it's not very easy to look at that from the way it's at, so I'm going to turn this whole thing over. When my son gets here, I'll have him help me turn this whole wing over, and then that false spar will be tipped up where I can look at it and be able to work on it better instead of laying down there on the ground on my back and reaching up and doing it. Now, so far I'm liking what I'm seeing here. I had that fuel tank out of there before because I had to repair that fuel tank when I did the fuselage repair on there, but I didn't look at the rest of that, and there's pretty thick paint down here. I was kind of worried about that on this spar and on this stuff here, but not near like what was on that other wing. And looking at it, I would say this wing was a new wing. This inboard rib here is bright and shiny. It looks like it's new. This skin that goes over this flap bay here, this inner false spar, that looks like it's new. All these false spars are brand new. They don't have any bends in them or the holes or anything that other wing had in it. All these ribs are nice and bright and shiny. You know, see there's primer on this strut right here. This strut over here is primered, nice and clean. I don't see any sign of any corrosion on it. These diagonal struts, this one has been primered, this one is bare. These hangers here, that as far as I can tell, the hinges for the ailerons, they look like they're new or were new. They're pretty clean. And of course these little stub ribs, whatever these things are called, these little extended things that go out here to the false spar, those are new. Of course, this is the cap they put on there to extend the gross weight. But these bolts in here for this strut attach fitting, all this stuff is nice and clean and new. There's no excess paint on the inside of that. All that looks good. This spar is bright and shiny. All these ribs are bright and shiny. The flying wires here look like they're new. All the attach fittings on them are nice and bright, and the bolts and screws and stuff are all the hardware looks really good. Out here on the end, this wingtip bow is intact on this one. On the other one it was broken, but it's been wet back here on this trailing edge and it's got mushrooms going out of it. So I think I'm probably going to have to build a new wingtip bow for this one like I did the other one. They still put the masking tape over everything here, but this masking tape is not dried out quite as bad as that other wing was. So that stuff looks good. These attach fittings here for this wingtip bow are rusty, and the hardware and stuff on that is rusty. where it attaches to the spar, so those are going to come out of there and be cleaned up, because we're not going to leave any rusty metal in that aluminum spar. A little bit rough on this. I think that's just from the glue, but I don't feel the dents and stuff in this outboard leading edge cap that was on the other one. That other one looked like it'd been had fabric glued in it, like it had rags in it or something. This one looks pretty clean, but that's got to come off to put the new spar in there, or the new wingtip bow in there. But this front spar, that looks like it's brand new. That's got primer on it. That's got green primer on it, and it's nice and clean. And these front leading edges are just as pretty as they can be. I've got one dent for some reason right here on this leading edge skin right here. Well, I should have a dent, yeah. Here someplace I had a dent in one of these leading edge skins, because right in here, I think, because I hit a seagull with it one time just after it, not long after I bought the airplane, and I had a pretty good dent in that leading edge. I think that's it right there. The rest of this looks pretty good, except for that one right there. I don't know what the heck happened there. That's a pretty good dent there. Something dropped on it or something there, it looks like. But otherwise, this wing looks pretty doggone good. I'll do a little bit of cleanup, check these bolts out here in this attach fittings here, these fuselage attach fittings, clean some of the paint, and I got a lot of peralcatone on everything there, so it looks ugly, but man, so far I'm looking like I don't have to do a whole lot here. We'll flip that wing over and be able to see underneath this flap false spar here, this fairing, and see what spring and everything looks like underneath there, and that flap bell crank and whatnot, and how it looks. But yeah, I'm happy with that. Little cleanup work on that a little bit, scrubbing and stuff to get the old paint or the old glue and stuff off of everything, and maybe a little touch up on a couple of spots. But those ribs all are in good shape. There's no dings or dents in those. That other wing, I had some ribs that were bent on that I did some repairs on. Yeah, I'd say this wing is, if it's not new, it's mostly new. This rear spar is not painted, not primered. It's bare aluminum, but the front spar is, wow, that's a relief. Alright, now I gotta wait for my son to come home to help me flip this wing over and work on that, getting that fabric loose from that false spar.